The ICJ was asked to rule on whether it's plausible genocide is taking place in Israel. It said that is plausible. It was then asked by South African prosecutors to make a judgment on, because of that, whether any preliminary measures should be taken. South Africa suggested 9, including the main one, a ceasefire. That was not granted, but the ICJ did say another set of preliminary measures must be undertaken by Israel under its obligations under international law. It said that, for example, it must take every measure possible, the armed forces of Israel, to make sure its soldiers are not engaged in genocide. It must provide more humanitarian aid to make sure that the residents of Gaza are not severely impacted by Israel's military operation. It must also, and this is what one lawyer after the ruling said was most interesting to him, prevent and punish statements which have been inciting statements that could be interpreted as genocidal. Now, the lawyer who I spoke to, who's experienced at international law at this level, said that that could include statements including and up to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of Israel. So it'll be interesting to see how Israel reacts there. Finally, the ICJ said that there must be an attempt to prevent any evidence that could link Israel's actions to genocide from being destroyed. That's in relation to the fact that this court case, South Africa versus Israel, is still now ongoing.
Stuart, so just talk us through the process. What happens next?
So this was a ruling in just 2 weeks, which for these kinds of cases is very rare. But the urgency meant that the 17 judges were able to come to a preliminary decision in just 2 weeks to issue these preliminary measures. But the case itself is due to take years, probably, in order to provide all the evidence for the potential for genocide and for the court to go through that evidence. So that case will continue. At the same time, there is still the option that this may end up with the United Nations Security Council, the only organ that can enforce any of the decisions the ICJ has made on Friday. And if it does end up there, we have the same discussion as before. Which of the Permanent Security Council members would endorse the ICJ's position if Israel decides not to take this ruling by the ICJ and implement it?
Stuart, just a quick one. What's the shouting going on behind you?
These are the pro-Palestinian protesters. About 400 of them, I would suggest, are here. When we were here earlier and the ruling was being made on the big screen by the judge, there was initial confusion about what exactly that's meant. But now it's clear there is no ceasefire. They are renewing their calls for a ceasefire. The Israeli protesters certainly pretty happy on the whole about this, despite the fact it clearly does denigrate the Israeli military operation for being too violent towards the residents of Gaza.